This is a Dubai Eye 103.8 podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Your top 5 guide to getting ahead in business on Starting Up.
And it is a very warm welcome to Michelle Stradham, who is the CEO and founder of the SMG Group. First of all, Michelle, thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
And it's kind of a different environment. We're here, we're not in a studio. It's kind of a nice place. We've got comfy chairs for you to sit and have a chat with us.
You have. I must say they're wonderful and wide and they support your back really well. So thank you for that.
Top marks to Etisalat there on the old chair front. We are going to talk to you about your tips. And you've been listening to the theme of the show today. And I know that one of your tips actually is so relatable to what we've been talking about the whole way through. And I think it's just really interesting because everybody that we've talked to so far sees failure in a slightly different light, and it'd be great to get your opinion. So we'll start with your first tip, and it is all about failure. Fail your way to success. Tell us more, Michelle.
Well, failure, first of all, is an outcome, not a person. Because failure for me is a result of when you've tried something that was beyond your capability, and for that it should be celebrated. It shouldn't be looked down upon. Because most of the time when we fail, we take it so personally. We beat ourselves up. It's pretty soul destroying, and you're not a failure in my eyes at all until you've quit. And I'll never forget once meeting somebody, and a guy said to me, "Michelle, I don't fail at anything." And I remember thinking, that must be a pretty sad life to live.
Yeah.
Because having never failed means you've never taken risks, you've never gone beyond your capabilities, you've never challenged yourself. Because how can you grow and evolve if you actually haven't had those failures along the way? And I honestly believe if you want to truly succeed, you've got to truly fail. And what doesn't break you makes you stronger.
That's definitely one of George's mantras. Now, Michelle, you do a lot of keynote speaking. I guess talking about failure is really significant when you're having these conversations.
Yes, absolutely. I talk at different events and different business forums, and I think, generally as human beings, we tend to gravitate towards the negativity. So as entrepreneurs, we always sort of have the scars of failure within us, whereas I like to reframe that and say, you've got to develop what I would say, Natalie, is my second tip of developing that failure RR. RR standing for rubber rear, and being able to bounce back after you've had a setback. That is really, really important, especially when you're running your business and you don't really know what's around the corner. Because I think anyone who's put themselves out there has definitely failed.
Yeah.
That's sort of kind of a no-brainer. But some people, when they do fail, and I see it when I'm working with my different clients, is some people take it as a death sentence and they really are not prepared to try anything else again. Whereas other individuals see it as a learning experience and then they just want to use it to go to the next level. Okay,
so let's move on to number 3. And this is something that I mentioned throughout the show so far, how we view failure. Because for everyone, it's quite a subjective thing to look at failure, or it can be. And what you're saying is look at how you view failure.
Very much so. I think it's a critical area how we view it, because successful people look at an opportunity and say, how will this work? Will it succeed? Will it work? Whereas the average person would look at an opportunity and say, what happens if it fails, as opposed to what happens if it succeeds? And that for me is the major difference. So it's so important as an entrepreneur to understand what are the lens are you viewing failure through. Because if you're going to view failure in a negative way, it's really going to weigh you down. And I'd like to, from my perspective, for all our entrepreneurs out there, it's important we concentrate, what I say, on the rewards of success as opposed to the penalties of failure. Because where your mind focuses on is where you're going to gravitate towards, in my opinion.
Okay, so we've talked about viewing failure. We've talked about how you handle coming back and bounce back ability. What about number 4? Number 4 is where is your focus? That's your tip number 4.
Yeah. So focus for me is very important, especially running your own business. What is it you're actually focusing on? And I remember when I started my own business, I was focusing on too much. I was trying to take on too much. I was doing too many things. And to be honest, I just wasn't getting very far at all. So focus for me is a critical area we need to be thinking about. And how I like to frame it is if you had to take a magnifying glass and use the energy from the sun and focus that magnifying glass in one specific spot, you are very likely going to start a fire. Now imagine, entrepreneurs, if you are the sun and you've got tons of energy in you, but you're not going to be able to start any fire until you start focusing on that one tiny spot. In other words, what is your key point?
Yeah.
What is your key focus? Otherwise we can get so distracted trying to, I guess, be everything to everyone, and it just can lead to more failures happening as well.
And for you personally, is that something that you really had to learn the hard way, would you say, Michelle?
Very much so, because I probably, in reflection for the first 6 months, I think trying to, conquer Mount Everest and taking on too much, not having enough focus, not having enough self-awareness of, the importance of the priorities of the directions I should have been taking. And I think as an entrepreneur, time is money. So when you are, doing everything yourself, walking away from a corporate world, if there's something wrong with your PC from an IT perspective, you've got to go and fix it. You can't sort of say, where's my IT guy? So, sometimes you've got to be everything to everyone. For me, I really am now more mindful, and the lessons that I learned through that journey is, where am I spending my time? Because time is money for entrepreneurs, and you want to be spending your time on the things that hopefully are going to give you the best return on investment.
And finally, number 5. This is my favorite one. Tip number 5 is celebrate failure. Easier said than done, perhaps.
And I just think, because everybody is, I guess, gets so paralyzed with fear. What does fear stand for? I read it once in a book, False Expectations Appearing Real. But, most people, if we're honest, it's no secret, they can't handle failure. And, they can't get over it and they can't move on. So to me, one should celebrate failure, because it isn't really about your perspective about failure, because everyone knows what to do. If you don't want to fail, then you shouldn't be making mistakes. But we all know that that's not going to happen, because every one of us, most of us in life, are going to make a mistake at some stage. I mean, that's inevitable. But if you're not going to try and do something, how do you know if you're going to ever get there or not? So, I certainly, from a celebrating success perspective, would like to encourage the entrepreneurs to have what I would term a mindset shift. Don't think of failing as a traumatized experience. Celebrate it. Know it. Expect it to come. Learn from it. Grow from it, because it's going to help you evolve and actually take you further along your journey of having more successes, in my opinion.
Okay, before we let you go, Michelle, for you personally, can you think of one of the sort of failures that had such an impact on you that you still sometimes now, look back on and think, I think that's really shaped me?
Yes, there has been a couple, but certainly one that stands out for me, Natalie, is when you have worked really hard on a project and it's taken a lot of your time, your effort and resources, and you really are expecting, this was obviously in my sales profession, obviously when I was in a sales leadership role, and we were absolutely 99.9% confident and almost had banked an opportunity that we were going to be awarded, which was in significant value. And to be honest, I had probably an air of overconfidence. Sometimes that can border on arrogance. And the result was we never got the deal. Wow. And it was crushing to us, because it was the difference between making our budget or not. It affected bonuses. It had a lot of impact. And I really took it pretty personally. And it's only when I could reflect back and as life moved on, because often you can't understand it when it's too emotionally close to you, but when you look back in the rearview mirror, when you've progressed a bit further, then the lessons that you pick up of how you grow personally actually evolve more. And for me, it's to understand that having not always accepted and realized that things will go your way. No, they don't always go your way. And at that particular time it didn't. But I had a lot of personal lessons coming out of that.
Yeah, the blessing of time and a bit of hindsight can be quite helpful, can't it?
Very much so.
Thank you so much for coming on the programme. Michelle Stradham is the CEO and founder of the SMG Group. That was her top 5 tips. And what a perfect compliment to our programme on failure. Really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great seeing you.
You've been listening to a Dubai Eye 103.8 podcast. To enjoy lots more from Dubai Eye in the United Arab Emirates, just go to DubaiEye1038.com or find them wherever you normally get your podcasts.